the weekend, about 1,300 individuals in attendance, which is a pretty fair crowd. There's only one guy that gets better crowds than that, and you know who that is. So we'll talk about that today and unpack a little of what that means moving forward. Ron DeSantis has repeatedly stated that he will not be announcing his intentions regarding the presidency until sometime after the Florida legislature is done with their business, and that should be sometime in April. So we'll deal with that today. Joe Biden was in Selma, Alabama at the Bloody Sunday commemoration. It is an annual pilgrimage for a lot of different politicians and others. One would hope and think that we could manage to keep this pilgrimage pure in the sense that it commemorates an important day in American history. It is one of the seminal moments in a very important movement in modern American history, the civil rights movement, to ensure equality. And sadly, it has been overtaken by politicians who want to posture instead of remember. And that's what Joe Biden did yesterday. Senator Tommy Tuberville, the now senior senator in Alabama, which is odd to say. You know, when I first got to Alabama, I was there for about 20 years. There was Richard Shelby and Jeff Sessions, and now there's neither of those guys. You know the backstory there. Sessions left to become Attorney General of the United States of America. That didn't work out for him. Richard Shelby recently retiring. Tommy Tuberville was a former football coach. I didn't know what to think of him in terms of his candidacy. He was always saying the right things. There wasn't a lot of depth of knowledge. There is now. And I think after a couple of missteps early on in his tenure as a senator, he has done great work down in the state of Alabama. And I think he's pretty good friends with Haggerty and Marsha Blackburn. That said, he reflected on what I just said to you, that sadly, Bloody Sunday is becoming nothing more than a photo op for politicians trying to position themselves for future political gain. Joe Biden's been around the block or two, but he's not immune to that either, and he was doing so yesterday. And we'll break it down for you over the course of the show today. The COVID narrative shift this weekend was noticeable by me, even though I was out of town and out of pocket for most of the weekend. And I want to discuss that. We cannot allow the same individuals that suggested to us, really not even suggested, that told us that any variant off of the narrative path that we were told we were allowed to repeat regarding COVID was one that would get you canceled, destroyed, fired, removed from public life. Because not only was any movement away from the official narrative of COVID-19 so set down by the liars themselves, like Anthony Fauci, you would be deemed a pariah or worse. They would come after you in an effort to cancel you. Well, now so much of what was said back then, we know to be fact now. If you didn't know it then, if you speculated on it then, and I did, I don't claim to have known this for fact 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, but I know this. I was open to any and every option available to me. That is called gathering information before you make a determination. That's what so many of us did. And we were called xenophobic and racist because it was somehow anti-Chinese to suggest some of these things. We were told that we were anti-science. We now know those that were screaming follow the science the most were those that had no interest in following the science. Instead, they were following the politics. And the politics of all of this determined that you must ignore the fact that we were funding Chinese virology labs, ignore the evidence right before our very face, and allow those that, quote unquote, told us to follow the science to ultimately politicize the matter in such a way that it would be damning for a president that they did not like, someone who had nothing to do with the COVID virus to begin with. But they made it all about him. Somehow a virus that was all about the Chinese, a Chinese government that our president of the United States at the time happened to be going after regarding trade imbalances and other things. Suddenly, he was the bad guy. No one mentioned China. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their problem. Any suggestion that it was is xenophobic and somehow anti-Chinese people. And now the narrative has shifted because the truth is finally coming out despite their best efforts. And as the truth comes out, they have to shift the narrative because these are the very people that tried to destroy some of us who raised our hands and said, hey, maybe this did come from a laboratory. Yeah, you're anti-science. But we weren't. And we aren't. And while it is somewhat tilling old ground, it is also important that we do not let those that are choosing to, quote unquote, move on, we cannot let them get away with it. We can't. And we won't. The United States Supreme Court is set to rule on loan forgiveness. It's another subject that we'll bring up today. And this has nothing to do with whether or not this should be done. And once again, there are people that know better that want to tell you that's not the case. And I know I missed a little bit of this on Friday, but I want to circle back to it on this Monday. Most of those screaming and yelling and gnashing their teeth in front of the United States Supreme Court late last week were doing so by comparing loan forgiveness to things like PPP loans during COVID, which there is no comparison. Even if you try to do that, it's not a solid comparison anyway. But none of it matters. This is not about whether or not loans should be forgiven. By the way, I don't think they should. I think that everyone that entered into those agreements did so willingly and understanding the ramifications, or at least they most certainly should have. No, this is about whether or not the president has the authority to do that. One branch usurping the authority and the power over another branch. I was with my good friend Jay St. Clair, who's one of the finest legal minds that I've ever met, over the weekend. And he asked a very telling question on the golf course, and I'll repeat it to you now. What would happen if Congress passed a law, serious question, and you can hit me up on the super text line or on the phone lines even. What would happen if Congress passed a law basically saying the president can do whatever he wants? The Congress of the United States of America passes a law and says, you know what? The president's going to do the budgets from now on, and the president can, he's got authority to do any executive order he wants. We just want out of it. We don't want to do our jobs anymore. We just want to, just the hell with it. Just the president, you can do it all. What would happen? Well, 0320 immediately says there probably would be a revolt. Not what would happen from a legal perspective, I guess I should ask. It's unconstitutional. Even if Congress wanted to grant the powers to the executive branch, the Constitution of the United States prevents Congress from doing so. So whether Congress cares or not, certain things are unconstitutional for the president to take over. This being the extreme example, Congress just says, we're not doing our jobs anymore. The president can do it. We're granting, as Congress, as one branch of government, we're granting all of this authority to the other branch of government. Of course, we would challenge it in the Supreme Court and the third branch of government. Tom, you're exactly, is that Tom? No, 0320. The Congress would be disallowed from abdicating their responsibilities as set forth in the Constitution of the United States, just as Congress cannot simply give him all of the power. And sadly, Congress has been doing more and more and more of this with the executive branch of government. This is not a problem that started yesterday, but it's one the executive branch is slowly taking advantage of. And I know that this is not the sexiest of conversations to have on a Monday edition of the Murphy Show, but I think it's an important one. It does not matter whether the one branch of government wants to give over certain constitutional duties or responsibilities to the other. Unless you pass an amendment to the Constitution doesn't change. And for example, the House of Representatives is the taxation authority in the United States of America. And that's not going to change even if the Congress, which has the authority, wants to give it to someone else. It's not the way it works. It is that very factor that prevents this government from becoming totalitarian, something that the liberals seem to want more and more as the days go on. And so when you have Nancy Pelosi and others telling you that loan forgiveness on the part of the President of the United States is unconstitutional unless it's passed by the Congress, believe it or not, yes, I'm saying this, we might ought to listen to Nancy Pelosi because maybe she has a point. So none of this has anything to do with our precious college graduates and their desire not to pay their bills. It has to do with the authority that Congress is willing to hand over to the President of the United States and how a third branch of government is and has always been there to stop that sort of usurpation. I like that, man. That's good. I just glanced over and saw where Matt says Congress should pass a law making it illegal for sliced turkey to be $13 a pound. I'd like to see that. Hey, let's just make ridiculous inflation illegal and see what happens. All right, so that's the take on the student loan forgiveness. One branch of government can't just give powers to another when it's clearly not defined in the Constitution that they have the ability to do that. Now, sadly, what the Congress has done over the last 40 years to get around this, a great example also taught to me by my good friend Jay, is as follows. The bill, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, I guess it is. Am I saying that right? OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I think that's right. Do you know the bill that Congress used to pass the federal government regulatory body called OSHA is, I think I have this right, 5 pages long. 5. OSHA's regulations are somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 pages. Congress voted on and authorized a bill that was 5 pages long. And in passing the bill, in the language of the bill, it says the executive branch of government is authorized to figure out the details, basically. They'll figure all the details out. Those details now constitute 6,000 pages of regulatory language, none of which is the executive branch of government's job. None of which. That's Congress's job. But they just handed the job to the executive branch of government. And they do this over and over and over again. All they want are the headlines and the accolades that come with them. Oh, praise Jesus. We passed OSHA. Now we're going to have safe workplaces across the United States of America. 6,000 pages later, these onerous regulations hurt businesses every day under the spirit of we don't want any slip and falls. Now, I don't mind having OSHA or a regulatory body, although I think it's really the responsibility of the states, but I won't divert myself with that argument. But what I don't like is the fact that Congress gave its role to the executive branch of the federal government. And sadly, there's no one there to do anything about it because Congress doesn't want to have to do the heavy lifting. That is an extreme example of what I'm talking about. And until we find our way back to the constitutional role of the federal government and find our way back to the constitutional role of the Congress of the United States, we will never break apart what I'm now referring to as the BIC, the bureaucratic industrial complex in Washington, D.C., that think they run the show. I promise you the FBI, the heads of the FBI in Washington, D.C., believe in their heart of hearts that they're far more important than the President of the United States or any elected official in the Congress of the United States. And so it goes for the NSA and the CIA and the NIH and the CDC and all of these other government bureaucracies that are passed on 5 pages of congressional paper and left for the executive branch of government to figure it out. And you don't think the executive branch of government is going to give themselves the extreme authority when it comes time to writing the regulations? If you wonder why the states don't have any power anymore, it's because the Congress consistently gives more and more power to the federal government through the executive branch. That's a real long-winded way of saying there's no way the Supreme Court allows loan forgiveness to move forward. Not a way in hell. It's 12:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just getting underway. I'm glad you're here on the Matt Murphy Show. Friends, I have found the way to up your food game in a way that I previously had not imagined, and it is at Savory Spice. 2 locations to serve you. I'm going to give more on those locations coming up in just a moment. You walk through the doors of Savory Spice, and I don't care what kind of foods you like, whether it's chicken or steak or salmon, or maybe you're a vegetarian and you're looking for something to spice up some of those vegetable dishes that you have going on in the kitchen. You do your due diligence when it comes to the food that you buy, but then you grab from your cupboard some of these old spices that have been in there for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you bought them at a discount to begin with. And what do you think you're doing to that delicious food that you just bought for premium prices? You're degrading it. Let's up that food game with some delicious spice from Savory Spice. You owe it to yourself. The salt selection alone is worth the trip to Franklin. They're right off the square, right beside Gray's Drugstore. You can also find them at L&L Market. That's in Nashville on Charlotte Pike. When you stop by, when you go in, do me a favor and tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the delicious Savory Spice. All right, it's 12:27. Thank you, Tim Melton. Appreciate you, Tim, handling news duties this afternoon. A lot of shifting going on. You know, the boss goes out of town and everything goes higgledy-biggledy. Nobody minds when I'm out of town, especially when Cameron Smith is taking care of business, and I appreciate him for doing so. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number. If you'd like to be a part of the show this afternoon, you're always invited to give us a call. If you cannot call and wish to text so as to opine, 615-737-9986. So Congress has long been abdicating, it's a favored word of mine, their responsibilities in favor of allowing the executive branch of government to figure out the details. They create these agencies and then allow the agencies themselves to tell us how much power those agencies have. Do you not understand how ripe for corruption and abuse this is? So if I created an agency, you know, we want to make sure that all Tennesseans have all the ice cream that they want, because we believe ice cream is a good thing. And so I'm going to start the Nashville Ice Cream Association, the NICA. And in the Nashville Ice Cream Association, we'll have, the goal of that association is to make sure everybody's got ice cream. We're going to let the association that I just created, the Nashville Ice Cream Association, figure out how they're going to meet those requirements, what authority they have, what abilities they have to go, for example, door to door to deliver said ice cream. Anything that they need in order to function, we're going to fund them. We're going to allow them to set up their own rules, to set up their own regulations, and they'll exist in that way so long as they're fulfilling their obligations to make sure that we got enough ice cream in Nashville. Now, how much authority do you think the Nashville Ice Cream Association is going to take for themselves? A lot is the answer. As much as we will allow them is another way to answer the question. 7 or 8 months ago it was, sometime last year, as you and I were talking about one of these matters, this time it was involving the FBI, I came to the final conclusion that the FBI has been corrupted too much in Washington, D.C., and they are the best example of a bureaucratic organization at the federal level that has overextended its constitutional boundaries to the point that the only way to solve the issue, I don't pretend that we don't need an agency like the FBI. I understand the function and purpose of the Federal Bureau of Investigation as it was originally drawn out. I also understand that bureaucracy has grown to the point that they are extra constitutional and they must be destroyed. Otherwise, they're simply going to continue to usurp power away from those that rightfully ought to have them, those entities like the states themselves and the people themselves. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was designed to be an agency limited in scope. And now they're I can't say that word on the radio. They're the head jackhole in charge. Let's put it that way. 12:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ron DeSantis was at the Reagan Library over the weekend. We'll discuss his appearance there. And Donald Trump had a great appearance at CPAC. We'll discuss that as well as we continue on the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1238. The overarching theme of our first 30 minutes together, how one branch of government has over the last 40 years just handed authority to another branch of government, and now we're shocked and amazed that that other branch of government is trying to take more authority even still. That's what's going on, and it's part of the issue, and it's part of why we as individual states and as individual citizens see our federal government growing at the rate that it is. It's mostly bureaucracy. It's the BIC, the Bureaucratic Industrial Complex, and it will be the ruination of this country if we let it. But we're going to do everything we can to not let it. In the meantime, I don't want to be accused of not covering the hard stories when it comes to the news that I find over the weekends, especially during the lunchtime hour. I know some of you are able to listen on your lunch break, and then you have to go back to it, and I am sensitive of that. So I want to make sure that I get this story out there in our lunchtime hour, and we'll move on to some other things. Boca Raton, Florida. Government works best where it works most locally. And sadly, at many city council meetings around the United States of America, and certainly at an organization like this is the Boca Raton Planning and Zoning Board. You don't see enough citizens taking advantage of their opportunity to speak truth to their elected leaders. And so I would like to congratulate a woman who identified herself, and you'll hear her in just a moment, as Ashley Cream, C-R-E-A-M. Ashley, at the end of this zoning and planning board meeting, the board chairman asked if anyone had any questions or had any public comment. Ms. Cream stood up, went to the podium to address the assembled planning board and others in attendance. And she was accompanied by a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, but he stood up and walked to the podium with her and stood behind her. Now, understand, the presentation that she had just listened to was related to a motion to approve an ordinance to amend city code for the bulk storage of flammable liquid. Okay? I'll say it one more time. There was a presentation at the Boca Raton Planning and Zoning Board for the purpose of approving an ordinance to amend city code for the bulk storage of flammable liquid. Ooh, it's exciting stuff. Ms. Cream stood up, and here's what she said.
Okay.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Ashley Crave.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay. I just want to say good evening, everybody. Everybody's looking absolutely fabulous. A little bit serious, but I am here as a concerned citizen and voter. You guys might not be aware, but Florida has the largest per capita population of sugar daddies in the U.S. Miami, Palm Beach, and Boca lies the most concentrated populace of these aged benefactors. Sugar daddies, both gay and straight, and yes, even sugar mommies, are responsible for college educations, cars, homes, rents, jets, Birkins, and the occasional body enhancement. But not me, though.
She's, I should pause here and let you know two things. One, while she's speaking, there is a gentleman who is obviously her sugar daddy standing behind her. And when she makes reference to body enhancement, she points to hers as a reference point.
And the occasional body enhancement. But not me, though. I'm all natural.
I don't believe you.
Supporting our local economy. Let us celebrate these giving, generous Samaritans as I stand before you, requesting that you decree a Sugar Daddy and Mommy Appreciation Day on March 10th to honor those who have given us so much. Thank you and love you all. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for your, but that's
Wait, let's see what the guy
a
says.
city council issue.
It's
I really,
okay,
really
he said
just wanted
nothing.
to address this issue here
Okay.
today
Okay.
because I think it's a very important issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you as well. You guys look amazing.
What the hell is that?
2306 says, God help us if that's it. No, she's a citizen of our country. She was joined by, her name is Ashley Cream, and she was joined by, I can only believe it was her sugar daddy standing behind her, who's now in a wheelchair. And she wanted to honor, one would presume, her sugar daddy by offering an opportunity for the board to decree a Sugar Daddy and Sugar Mommy Appreciation Day on March 10th. Now, she was in front of the wrong body to do this. There's no sense of humor in this planning and zoning board meeting at all. The guy just says it's a city council issue and moves on. But I thought it was important enough to say, you know what? Sometimes people's minds can be changed on certain things and certain issues. Sometimes, based on a presentation as compelling as this one can be called to perhaps relook at the way that they felt about certain things. I never liked all of these appreciation days. I don't like, it's son-in-law's appreciation day and this and that and the other things. I think it's nonsense. I think it's a waste of paper. But I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm supportive of this. Sugar Mama and Sugar Daddy Day. That's great. All hail the Sugar Daddies. And yes, like 5474 says, I'm still waiting on my Sugar Mama. In the meantime, on a more serious note, 4271 writes something that I want to address this. It's important to understand the difference. 4271 says, you're definitely talking about defunding police. Weird. How so? I would challenge that. No, I'm not. I'm talking about restructuring the FBI to make it more constitutional. I'm talking about the FBI being answerable to someone, and right now they're not. Who does the FBI answer to? Regularly, you see one would presume it's the Attorney General of the United States who's ultimately answerable to the President of the United States. All I see is deflection going on. In the last 12 months, how many times have we listened to the White House press secretary explain to us that they can't answer a question because the FBI told them not to, regarding declassification of documents and finding classified documents at Joe Biden's house? Well, they don't say it that way, but that's what they're saying. Well, we've been advised to defer all of those questions over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice. They're handling that. They work for the President of the United States. The media has presented this nonsense that they are somehow above the structure designated by the Constitution of the United States, and they're not. What I am saying, by the way, 4271, and I don't want to get on you too badly. I appreciate you listening, but I didn't say anything about funding anything. What I said is we need to deconstruct and reconstruct the FBI in a manner more consistent with the rights and liberties of the citizens of the United States of America. They have lost their way. They have become a political agency. And I can give you example after example of how that's so. They attempted to affect the 2016 election cycle by bugging Trump Towers on a suspicion that there was a collusion with the Russians. Where did this suspicion originate from? From the Steele dossier, a dossier that they already knew was garbage. They used a garbage dossier to get a FISA warrant to spy on a presidential candidate because they liked the other guy. That's the organization that I want to see dismantled. Oh, but that wasn't enough. You see, the guy that they didn't like as a candidate for president won anyway. And the mainstream media, in concert with the Democrats and the FBI in this case, they parroted the talking points. When Donald Trump came out and said they're spying on me at Trump Tower, the media laughed at him. And the federal government laughed at him. Oh, this is ridiculous. Look at this. This is the reason this man shouldn't be president. He's just making these wild claims and accusations with no evidence to back it up. He was true. He was right. He was exactly right. But no one was held to account. No one. Oh, whatever. Page and Peter Strzok. Come on. No person in a position of authority, all of whom created a dynamic by which they could claim plausible deniability, none of them were held to account. Oh, James Comey got fired. And what did the media and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. try to do with that? They tried to destroy Trump because he wanted a different FBI director. You know, I don't know, maybe somebody that did not actively use the FBI in an attempt to destroy him. And then there came 2020. In 2020, the FBI learned that they could not act as agents for one political party directly without that stinky bubbling up to the surface. Now, they got away with it in 2016, but just barely. If they did not have a compliant and complicit mainstream media, maybe they don't get away with it at all. Maybe heads would roll. So we've got to use an intermediary this time around. So when they got the laptop computer in 2019, the one belonging to Hunter Biden, and they did all of their investigation onto that laptop computer, they knew exactly where it was, what it had in it. They had over a year to diagnose all of these things. And much to their dismay, despite their best efforts, this is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, an organization that is supposedly nonpartisan and doesn't involve itself in politics. Remember when James Comey said, well, we can't really do that because we're really too close to the election? Remember that in 2016? An organization that is designed to be outside of the sphere of political influence. They suppressed this story. A story that they actively did not want to come out regarding Hunter Biden's laptop computer, including information that indicated to them, with their knowledge, that Joe Biden, a candidate for president of the United States, had received monetary payment from Ukraine and from China through his son. That organization suppressed that information. And when the New York Post got their hands on, I'm just trying to review here. I'm just trying to defend my position that the FBI has extended itself beyond its usefulness to the point that you've got to rebuild it from the ground up, okay? Call it whatever you want. Once again, as I said at the beginning, I understand a need for a federal agency. But this one has got to go. There's no amount of cleaning house that's going to save it. Not when the organization used a social media platform like Twitter and probably Facebook and probably others. We simply don't know that because we haven't had Elon Musk buy Facebook yet. It took Elon Musk purchasing for $44 billion that organization so that you and I now could discuss what we knew to be true at the time, and that is the FBI used a social media platform to suppress valuable information in advance of a political election to support a particular political candidate. And you wonder why I'm mad at the FBI? And then when the Supreme Court rules on loan forgiveness, the media will just stand there and support them. Or rather, the media will stand there and lambaste them and support those that are claiming this is all about this particular issue. It's not. It's about executive branch overreach. This is how dictatorships begin. You get this much power centralized in the federal government, all you need is the military on your side, and you don't have a constitution anymore to begin with. Larry's coming up, Bernadette, too. It's 12:52. All right, that's my rant. I put on my rant pants for a minute, and I apologize to those who don't like me yelling. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, statistics show that when people begin noticing their hearing loss, they avoid it. And I understand why. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to deal with it. You figure you can overcome it in different ways. And before you know it, years go by. Sometimes people wait that length of time before doing something about it. Let me tell you. Please contact Ronnie at Brentwood Hearing Center. I say please because I know how beneficial this can be for you. I've sat down with Ronnie, talked with him, walked through the facility at Brentwood Hearing Center, saw some of the incredible modern techniques that they use to get you the best hearing today. And that includes hearing devices that are modern in the sense that they're almost invisible to the naked eye. You can barely see them, especially when they're in the ear. And let me tell you, they work. This is not granddaddy's hearing aid. This is modern technology available for you. So if you or a loved one has hearing loss, let's go ahead and take care of it with Brentwood Hearing Center. Go to BrentwoodHearingCenter.com, BrentwoodHearingCenter.com, or give them a call and schedule an appointment. 615-377-0420. 377-0420. Let's get that hearing checked with Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing for a better life. So you're getting out and about. It's 70-something degrees outside. Maybe you're in the backyard. Maybe you're mowing the grass. There's a lot of that going on, a lot of allergies going around. My head's all stopped up. Well, as you're out and about, have you noticed that you've got some chipping or paint fading on the exterior of your home and you want to deal with it? I know the place to go. That's Nashville Painting Company. Jeremy and his team, they are great at what they do. They are, I'd like to say going on 10, but I think they're right around 9 years in Nashville, and they've changed the painting industry in Nashville because of their incredible pricing and their quality customer service. I mean, it is the number one priority, first, middle, and last with Nashville Painting Company. They want you to be satisfied with the job done and the price that you pay. So whether it's brick staining or brick lime washing, perhaps it's deck staining or fence staining, or your traditional interior work, and it's been interior season for the last several months, and they still got some great pricing on some interior jobs, or the exterior of your home, whatever you need, Nashville Painting Company at NashvillePaintingCompany.com, 615-635-0350, 635-0350, Nashville Painting Company. All right, here we are. Here we go. Hour number 2. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, broadcasting loud and proud from Nashville, Tennessee, just down from Music Row, all across the state. Thank you for being with us on the radio. Thank you for being there on the app. Or if you're joining us on Super Talk TV, we appreciate that as well. Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube up and running. You can, I don't know why you would want to, but if you want to see this ugly mug, you're invited to do so on the old TV, and you can do that with those applications I just mentioned. 615-737-9986. That is our telephone number, 615-737-WWTN. Now, in addition to being the telephone number, it's also the super text line. That's a great way that people utilize. I mean, you can utilize the super text, and there's no waiting, right? Get your comment in there so Murphy will see it, and you don't have to wait like I've made Bernadette and Larry wait for so long on the phone lines here, and I'm getting to those in just a moment, so you guys hang in there. Real quick, so first hour, we dissected why the BIC, the Bureaucratic Industrial Complex, has taken over the Military Industrial Complex as the central reason why we have been, well, it's the reason that I believe the federal government is growing at the rate that it is. It's the reason that we have $32 trillion in debt. It's the reason our elected officials can't seem to get anything done. It's an excuse-making machine for the executive branch of government. Donald Trump was one that tried to break through it. What do you think he means when he talks about the deep state or the swamp? That's what he's talking about. Sadly, this is being used as a pick by the Democrats and Joe Biden. Oh, we can't do that. We can't say that. We can't go there. Why? Because of the FBI or the CIA or the Department of Justice. All organizations that report to him, the President of the United States. I mentioned COVID in the first hour, and I want to address this really quickly, and then I'll get to our calls. Obviously, the midterm elections were somewhat of a disappointment in as much as Republicans did not take over the United States Senate. However, the House of Representatives is making hay while the sun is shining. And they are uncovering information that we all knew to be true at the time, but because we did not have, or at least I can only speak for myself, right? If I don't have the evidence, we can talk, we can speculate, we can pontificate, we can engage in theorizing, conspiracy, and otherwise. But that's all it is. In order to verify, you must have proof. And now Republicans in the House of Representatives are uncovering proof. And it's going to upset you. I had my rant pants on in the first hour, and that might be the case this hour too. I missed you on Friday. New emails. Well, let me start by saying this. There is no other bureaucrat that better epitomizes what I mean when I say the bureaucrat industrial complex than Anthony Fauci. A lifelong government bureaucrat believing himself to be above the law.
I do science.
Anthony Fauci demonstrated his God complex in abundance over the last 2 or 3 years. He believes that he's better than you. He's more important than you. He's smarter than you. And you should simply I mean, screw your independence and the Constitution. Listen to him. Isn't that the general attitude we've had over the last 3 years with this guy? And his departure from the main stage, it was the biggest mistake of the Trump presidency. The biggest mistake of the Trump presidency was not firing. Well, I won't say the curse word. Try to be better about the language. That guy. New emails uncovered by House Republicans probing the COVID-19 pandemic revealed the deceptive nature of Dr. Anthony Fauci, writes Miranda Devine of the New York Post. By the way, what would we do without Miranda Devine? What a great reporter. They show, these emails do, that he commissioned and had final approval on a scientific paper written in February of 2020 specifically to disprove the theory that the virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China, something that we now believe was the case, know to be the case. Now, I say know it to be the case because I know it. Based on the evidence presented in front of me, based on the common sense given to me by God, and to a lesser degree, my grandfather. Pa always said that they ought not call it common sense. They ought to call it uncommon sense because he doesn't see a lot of it walking around anymore. And he's right. I know it. The only question I have is whether it was intentional or unintentional, and I'm certainly leaning one way. The former, not the latter. So, Anthony Fauci in February of 2020, before most of us knew what the hell we were dealing with, commissioned a paper. That scientific paper was written specifically to disprove a lab leak, something that you're not supposed to do in science. You know, come to a conclusion and then fit the facts to meet the conclusions. 8 weeks later, Anthony Fauci, scumbag that he is, stood in front of a White House press conference alongside President Donald Trump and then cited that paper as evidence that the lab leak theory was implausible, if not out and out wrong, while pretending that he had nothing to do with the paper. So here's how that goes. Okay, follow me now. Those of you in Aniana, I'll walk slow. So Anthony Fauci calls up. Ring, ring. Hi, I'm Anthony Fauci. And listen, look, this is Fauci. Give me some paperwork. Just kill this lab leak thing. Because, we can't have all of that. We can't have the truth getting out that I was actually the guy that was funding the thing that happened that's killing millions of people. So let's go ahead and get a paper out there, okay? Okay. And then 8 weeks later, he's standing before the American people and was like, well, there's been a lot of studies on this, and there was a report that came out a few weeks ago that just disputes all of that. There was a study recently, he told reporters in April of 2020, where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequences in bats as they evolved and the mutations that it took to get to the point. It's now totally consistent with a jump in species from an animal to a human. And so the paper will be available. I don't have the authors right now, but we'll make it available to you. You see that? Does that make you feel good about your government? This guy commissioned the paper, had final say over what its contents were, and then stood there with this you-know-what eating grin on his face and lied to every American to their face. This paper, I read it. It's just very, very well done. I don't know who it is. We'll find the author. I don't know a lot about it. I have nothing to do with it. The reason it angers me so much, if we knew the truth in February of 2020 or even before, as Anthony Fauci did, by the way, do you think America would have reacted differently to this? If I told you this came from a lab, it was human-generated, human beings using gain-of-function research created this super virus, What if I told you it was intentionally released? But even if not that, it's unintentionally released. How do you think the reaction would have been? The paper was titled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2. It was sent to Fauci for editing in draft form and again for final approval before it was published in Nature Medicine February 17th of 2020. It was written 4 days after Anthony Fauci and his boss at the NIH, Dr. Francis Collins, another person who ought to be in jail, had a call with the four authors, to discuss reports that COVID-19 might have leaked from the Wuhan laboratory and, quote, may have been intentionally genetically manipulated. The House Oversight Subcommittee published emails yesterday in which the paper's co-author, Dr. Christian Anderson, admits Fauci prompted him to write the paper with the goal to disprove the lab leak theory. It was such a setup from the start. And we tried to believe our government, mainly because of who our president was. And they lied to us. They just lied. And people died as a result. Family members, and this is why I get legitimately choked up. They were not allowed to see their grandparents die. And this schmug guy just is not held to accountable at all. All right, Larry, you've held long enough. Thank you for your patience, buddy. I appreciate you. How are you?
Hey, I'm hanging in there, man. First of all, I would love to meet Miss Bernadette and her husband and us all go on a Harley ride.
Well, I'm down. I'm the guy that can coordinate that, right? She's on the line right after you, so we're going to make that happen, Larry.
Well, I know, man, but I still want to be able to ride my Harley, and I can't do that right now. Secondly, I blame, and I got just a couple points to make. I have a slight differing of opinion with you, and then I have a question, if you will allow me. I know you're rushed. I blame my addiction to WTN on all you guys and Hank. Thirdly, my disagreement, or even though I agree about how the FBI has been corrupted, the CIA and NSA, which used to be just only known to a few as no such agency, were corrupt before it ever got into the FBI. And now it's all reached the highest levels. My question is, if we can do these college payback loans, do I get the law school student loans that I paid for my ex-wife back? Because I might vote for that.
How much did you?
I love you, man.
Wait, hold on, Larry. How much did you pay?
No, but look, $80,000. But I have one other comment, and this goes back to my darn addiction to WTN. Nobody should have a nightmare to where they're sitting on hold for an hour and a half to talk to you and Jay St. Clair, and you say, let's talk to Larry, and I completely forget what I'd called about, and I have to hang up.
I'm sorry, Larry, that you had that. When did you have this nightmare?
Last night.
I promise I'll never make you wait an hour and a half. 45 minutes, maybe.
I know, man, but I don't want you and Jay St. Clair. I love me some Jay St. Clair, but I don't want either one of you in my dreams.
Well, I don't blame you for that. I had him in my reality all weekend. Maybe I should.
Yeah, and I kind of hate you for that.
Well, trust me. Trust me. You came out on the good end on that one. I had
listen.
Go ahead.
I mean, you guys are great, and you have no idea the impact that you've made on our listeners, and I say our because I feel like I should be part owner of, Cumulus, but, uh, you know, I mean, you guys are so important, and I salute you all for what you do. That's from the bottom of my heart, man.
Well, Larry, thank you. I do not believe that I'm the important one. I believe that you are, and I salute you, and I thank you, and God bless you, and I'm sorry. I'm going to blame Jay St. Clair that there were dreams. I saw St. Clair over the weekend. I was at a strategic investment seminar for the weekend, and it went really, really well early on in the seminar, and then things got off the rails. Speaking of off the rails, I've been off the rails and not gotten to Bernadette. Hey, Bernadette, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Thank you for holding in there. How are you? How's it going for you?
Oh, everything's good. I'm on team Natisha Brooks, so I'm part of her campaign. So we out moving and grooving and doing what we need to do to get support for these voters. And I am so happy that you said what you said about the overreach of the government, because I'm finding that since I've been talking to people about Ms. Brooks and trying to get a feel as to where people's mindsets are, a lot of the things I've been hearing is, well, the politics is too dirty, everybody is too mean, and I don't want to get involved simply because it's just too much. But now I don't want to knock anybody who is involved, but I just really don't want to get involved. It's just too mean, and people be arguing and bickering and all this old garbage. We got to find a way, as conservatives, we got to find a way to counter that, because that's the reason why we are in the predicament that we're in now. You feel me? Because of this lackadaisical attitude, like, well, it's well, it doesn't involve me, or well, I don't want to be involved. But down the line, it's really going to involve you, whether you vote for it or agree with it or not. So why not just get involved anyway? You know what I'm saying? So we got to come up with a way to knock this wall down of complacency among the voters. And I blame the federal government and what you just said, the overreach and all that, for this very thing. But you know what? We still going to get in the seat. Ms. Brooks, she's going to be in the seat. I'm going to back her with 1,000,000,000%, and I'm glad that you all are too. So I just want to thank you for letting me say that.
Well, Bernadette, you keep plugging away. I've not taken any position. I've said this, that Natisha Brooks is the one confirmed mayoral candidate that I've had on the show that I can support, mainly because she's the only one. But I don't have any doubt that she'll have my support for a long time to come. I appreciate her. I mean, y'all should be in the fundraising mode right now, and I want you to raise as much money as you can, because it's going to cost a lot of money to win this election. That said, Natisha has the right message to the people of Nashville. Whether they're ready to receive it or not remains to be seen. I don't know. You probably shy away from the Tennessee, and I read some of this garbage so y'all don't have to. But there was a recent op-ed piece in the Tennessee, and did you see this piece by a woman by the name of Stephanie Wild about the crime in Madison?
I did not.
Go and read it if you can, Bernadette. I can find you a copy of it if you need me to find it. I think it might be behind their paywall, which I pay for monthly.
Okay.
But she is she's an African-American female, longtime resident, grew up in Madison, and she's talking about how she sees a lot of city councilors talking about stadiums and a lot of city councilors talking about sidewalks, but no one seems to want to deal with the crime and the crime rates that are rising over and over again, month to month, in the city of Nashville. And we better tackle that, because eventually, once the word gets out, if the crime rates continue to go up, you're going to see the tourism rates go down. And then we're in a lurch, because we depend on a lot of our government services with those tourism dollars. So it is a big deal that we get the Nashville Police Department back to where it needs to be. We get the crime rates back to where they need to be. And I think more and more people, the reason I bring up Ms. Wild, I don't know her, but I think more and more people within the African-American community are waking up to the fact that Democrats are not their friends.
Yeah, they really are. They really are.
Well,
and I woke up years ago.
Well,
So,
I know you did. I've got to,
Yeah.
Bernadette, love you. I got to scoot. We'll have Natisha back on soon as we cover that mayor's race moving into the spring and summer. It's 124 on Super Talk. Thank you much, Tim Melton. We'll get to you in mere seconds. As I was running late during that last break, good to talk with Bernadette. Bernadette supporting the Natisha Brooks campaign. There's a number of lawmakers that have announced their candidacy. We're trying to get them all on the show. I think Jeff Yarbrough, am I saying that right? Yarbrough, who is a state senator, has announced his candidacy for Nashville mayor. There's a couple of others. We'll run the laundry list coming up in the next few weeks and try to get these guys on. I have nothing against any of them. I look forward to the conversation. Hopefully, it centers around the concept of reducing crime in the city. Great op-ed piece by a woman by the name of Stephanie Wild. I don't know this person. I don't know their politics, but Stephanie felt compelled to reach out, saying that her central neighborhood is Madison. She grew up in Nashville. When I was younger, I was able to walk around my neighborhood without issue, without fear. Fast forward to today, and people are afraid to leave their homes and walk to their cars. 2 people were assaulted within a week in Madison, and neighbors have expressed there's been a crime wave of break-ins on their streets. In Goodlettsville, a neighbor's back door was kicked in, and they were robbed. Nashvillians and surrounding cities are scared. They want answers. They want answers in the form of adding more police. But the answers come in the form of adding more police, and you voted for that DA, she says. Those are not answers we want when our loved ones are dying. My cousin was one of the young men that was gunned down in the summer of 2020. This crime wave has been happening and coming for a long time, and when I have gone to seek answers, I'm always pointed elsewhere. Statistics show there's a direct correlation between the amount of dense housing and economic pressure that drives crimes. Why do our politicians only focus on increasing police presence? Well, I would disagree with that, Stephanie, but I'm glad you're worried about it. Then she goes on to say the news has dropped that they are building a massive development in Inglewood and 200 low-income housing residents will be displaced. While the current council member is stating they're working on to ensure they're not, one of the solutions is to build a 220-unit development in Madison, concentrating an already improvised area with more poverty. The facts don't lie, she says, finishing up. If Nashville continues to move in that direction that it is, we might be seeing a lot more crime. The monthly newsletters I get from various council members usually tied to our new stadium or sidewalk developments, never the rising crime. I think when we start to put this first, we will start to see real change on the horizon in our hurting city. I agree with Stephanie. I'm glad that she wrote into the Tennessean. I think her solutions are a little misplaced, but that's okay. I'm willing to have the conversation. I do believe it's a matter of getting our police department fully funded. I do believe it's a matter of getting it fully filled, and sadly, we're having difficulty doing that. Toward that end, I've got another story to tell you about regarding police officers, including in New York City. They're dropping the standards yet again in a desperate attempt to get more police officers. Plus, what happened in Atlanta over the weekend. It's all to come on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, located in Franklin. Let's talk about that pain that you're experiencing. You know, for a lot of years, I just anticipated that I would be with back pain forever because I had harmed my back over the years. You know, when I was in my 20s, my back didn't say a word about not lifting with my legs. Did not say a word about it. But I didn't. I lifted with my back, and my back put up with it. And my back always knew that it would have the last laugh. And now, well, it tries to, but I've got Dr. Gill on my side and the good team of the Dr. Gill Center, and they're helping me out. They're arming me with information and power, right? So Dr. Wendy will see you, or Dr. Dominic, or Dr. V, one of the team at the Dr. Gill Center with over 100 years experience collectively. They can assist you in any back pain that you might be having. And they have the most modern techniques, and they've been bringing those modern techniques to the city for the last 30-plus years, starting with the decompression technology and moving forward. I mean, I'm telling you, they've got a solution to your back issues that don't involve pills and don't involve surgery, and that's what it's all about. $23. All you have to do is make the call that so many others have made to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Allow me, if you will, to give you that telephone number. Give a call to 615-882-4838, 615-882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You're invited to be a part of the show in any manner of your choosing. You can hit me up on email. You can call us, 615-737-9986. You're invited to do so, 615-737-WWTN. That's also a number where you can text us, and that text line, super text line, I should say, is up and available, as is our Super Talk TV on Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Yes, I have my... Someone commented on my Buffalo shirt. This is not a sports team as much as it was a discounted shirt from the airport. I was up at Niagara Falls last year, and then we went through Buffalo, and Buffalo's an old industrial town, one of the first and most lighted cities in America because of Niagara Falls and the energy produced by the plant there. It was known as, I think it was called the City of Light as a result. and someone commented on my shirt that was watching on TV. Yeah, I got this at the airport at a discount. Buffalo's also become a crap hole, sadly. I mean, it was a what? Look, I got to call it like it is, Kay. I mean, it's a once proud city, and I'm just giving my impressions of the area. It was what it was. Also, a super texter asked if how was the golf course? Yes, we had a strategic investment seminar over the weekend in Tunica, Mississippi, and it was wet and windy. I hit 2 of the best shots I've ever hit on a golf course Friday, both on par 3s, where I had to adjust for 30+ mile an hour winds, and so I'm literally hitting the ball, angling it away from where I want it to go by, 25 yards, and watching it fade back in. It's pretty cool. Anyway, back to the police. So, how to solve the crime in Nashville. Thankfully, more people than just yours truly are noticing that there's been a crime uptick. Look, I was hesitant to bring this up because I was fairly new to the city. I am fairly new to the city. I'm now, 15 months in? 16 months? So with that newness factor, I didn't know if this was something that we've dealt with always, or is it going up? Is it the fault? Do we point the fingers to the district attorney, Glenn Funk, who doesn't seem interested in prosecuting crimes? He seems interested in spying on people, but not that interested in prosecuting crimes. Is it his fault altogether? I am told by people that know that we're some 300 officers down in Metro Nashville. I'm also told by those same folks that the morale amongst the current department is down as well. Why wouldn't it be? When we do not seem to have political figures locally that do everything in their power to support our police officers. Sadly, more often than not, the only time that the Metro Council brings up the Metro Nashville Police Department, at least it's been my experience, is when they have something negative to say about the police department. Now, and I understand, and I made this comment, I was at a gathering of law enforcement officials several weeks ago. I was invited to sit in on it as they discussed strategies to reduce crime in the state of Tennessee, right? These were district attorneys, these were sheriffs, these were other prosecutors, these were law enforcement officials and elected officials, all gathered together at an off-the-record meeting in which they discussed the best ways to tackle the issue of crime and the perception of crime in our major cities across the state: Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis. It happened to be on the heels of the sad Tyree Nichols case out of Memphis, in which 5 police officers lost their ever-loving mind and attempted to kill that young man, or at least it seemed. And I said then, and I'll say now, that we do not have, for the most part, a policing problem. We do have a morale problem because of a lack of support locally by elected officials of our police officers. And, here's the fact. It is not a news story. Let me put it this way. The headline, "Plane lands safely and on time," is not a news story. Fact is, planes land safely and on time every single day at BNA, every single day in airports across the United States of America. But that's not news. It's only when there's an issue in which there is news. But the fact that every day there are police interactions, tens of thousands of them, with citizens that don't go poorly, that go as they should, that doesn't get reported because it's not news. But when these matters do get reported, particularly when the 4-hour media cycle, that it creates